The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by one of the biggest sharks in the NBA DFS world, Mr. Mike Apotria. Hello and welcome to our first and initial show of our Fantasy DFS 7-day-a-week show, man. Can you believe it?
I'm pinching myself. I'm pinching it. No, we were just talking about it the other day. I mean, a lot of people heard us probably mention it if you listened to the last segment of our three-part series where we kind of broke down every DFS angle for every single player and every single team. We talked about it. We're going to give you guys a little quick hit. It's going to be a shorter show, probably about 10 minutes or so. But we're going to run through this one-game slate, this little showdown, the first game that we can gamble on for NBA other than Summer League for the year.
I just can't believe. I still can't believe it. I'm like, this is really going. It's starting finally. It's been the draft, the free agency, the summer league. It's just and it's here. We're here. But let me just say that Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today is presented by our partners Fantasy Draft, and we're so excited that they're aboard for the entire season. They'll be getting up and going on October 22nd. So we're excited for them. We'll be talking in these next 3 weeks on our daily shows about the contests that are up on DraftKings and FanDuel. Those are the two offering NBA contests in the preseason. The rest of them come in Yahoo and such with and our sponsor Fantasy Draft on the 22nd. So we're excited about that. Please continue to sign up at Fantasy Draft. Support them. They're in the middle of just huge football games there. They're NFL Hooters contests every week. So jump in there, fantasydraft.com, sign up with the promo code HoopBall, and get involved, man. Get involved. All right. Well, we're the main show is generally we're going to follow the same format each day. We'll initially start out talking about the previous days, lineup builds and what we brought forward and sort of review that, learn from it. Obviously, this being the first, we don't have that spot to go through. And then we're just going to jump into the slates. And, we're going to have this one game slate, which actually it's really weird because this game is played at 1 a.m. Eastern time on Friday because it's in Hawaii against the Clippers. And this show that's why it's being shown today, Thursday, October 3rd, because if it comes out Friday, it's going to be too late. The game will already be over. So we're talking about the one game NBA showdown slate on DraftKings that's offered with Houston versus the Clippers, which is a Friday 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time game. So that's what we're touching on today. And we're going to just go through some of our selections and some of our process of who and why we're thinking of them. And again, our goal in this 3 weeks of preseason and the first month of the 3 or 4 weeks of the regular season is let's make some money and build a bankroll before all of the pricing gets settled and everybody gets, hunkered down with who they want to play. This is when the edge of, hopefully you've listen to all of our preseason shows and you're ready for this to jump in because we want to make some money for you now, build a bankroll, and get you rolling. So let's jump right in with Houston and the Clippers. Now, we all got to see Houston play in that first game against the wonderful Shanghai Sharks, so that was very interesting. We do know that Westbrook is not going to play in this game. He is going to be sitting out another game. And so that's one piece. Other than that, there's been some injuries that are lingering here and there, and we'll go through those, and we'll start recommending some of the price plays. One thing I want to say before I'll let you roll with it a bit here, Mike, is for me, when I looked at this, selecting the captain and then your 5 utility spots, to me, the prices mean nothing right now because of all of the key players that are out, that are priced on there, that aren't going to play, like the Paul Georges and such. The higher price guys are out. So to me, I pretty much picked the 6 guys that I wanted, and price wasn't an object, which was really fun to do. We won't have that. It's squeezing those value guys in there is going to be, what we're trying to do most of the time. So that's one thing I wanted to say is, and I'll just tell you right off the bat, I think my captain is probably going to be James Harden, not because he went berserk against the Sharks. I just think that this feature game in Hawaii with Westbrook still out, even if Harden plays half the game, he's going to put up those numbers that you just, how do you ignore?
You can't, and he should be everybody's crown spot today. Or it's just set in stone. Nobody in this game has as much upside as he does. Nobody can have the much upside in limited minutes he does. And like we said, the other day, D'Antoni's going to play in minutes, I think, regardless. So, we want to see him work on the continuity with Westbrook. Westbrook's already been kind of ruled out, so that also just gives him that little boost. So, yeah, and prices, like you said, prices does not matter. And pretty much all of preseason, you could pretty much chalk that up there. We're not going to really take a lot of price into account because of just the availability of some players and how much we're going to have left over. And, even if you're left over there with, $4,000, $3,000, it doesn't matter in preseason. You can leave as much money on the table as you want and still take down a GPP. So
absolutely, and everybody tries to squeeze every dollar in there when the real time comes, and you want to do that. You want to get as much value as you can. I generally don't leave anything on the table at all. Maybe $100 of the money at the most. But in these, it's somewhat irrelevant. And as we get in, the following day there'll be 2 games, and then after that, it's pretty much consistent 4 or 5 games. So we'll have full slates. It won't be the mode where we're just picking the captain and then the other players. So it'll come into play a little bit, but that's the fun part of preseason. You pick the right guys that are going to get some Showtime minutes in there that aren't going to be in their normal rotation when the season comes. That's where we can make some money.
Absolutely, and let's. I think we can pretty much move on to the next one. And I think the best way that we can probably do this, Coach, is it being such a small slate with only 1 game, is maybe if we each give 3 players that we're interested in. That way, I mean, if the users want to use or our fans want to use it, they can even make their own lineup with these 3 guys that we each give. Because at the end of the day, we mentioned this early on, we don't want to just say everybody. That's not going to do anything for you guys. We want to give you guys 3 guys or a few guys that we're going to be very keen on that we might have in just about every one of our lineups, because that's the goal. Is we want to hit you guys in the right way and give you guys the right information and give you the tools to build the winning lineup. And saying any guy can do good in this game is not going to help you whatsoever.
Right. And, the other thing is in preseason games, let's face it, the key factor is, you really got to watch the information coming out, stay up to date on our blurbs on Hoopball, go to hoop-ball.com, look at those feeds, because the blurbs are coming out constantly of guys that, are ruled out or going to sit or have limited minutes. Also on Twitter, stay involved with us the whole time, because anything we see, we're going to be throwing on there on Twitter immediately. And if you have questions, I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He is at Micah Patria, MikeApotria. So, stay involved with that, because really, I'm telling you, if you can put a full lineup in there and not take a 0, because a lot of people do take a 0 here and there in preseason because they're not knowing who's going to play. So, I'm looking at some of the rotational guys I like for Houston. I'll throw out a few names that I'm considering, and that's Daniel House and Gerald Green. They both got a decent run and were in the flow of things. They both looked healthy and look solid. I think they'll continue to do that against the Clippers. And get a decent run and get some decent amount of shots up and opportunities to score some complementary points to Harden.
I think those are two good names to bring up, actually. I mean, House is a guy that we've seen him get some extended run last season and actually became a pretty big part of this team. He was able to play multiple positions. They even ran him a little bit at power forward as well. So I like both those calls. They're both good calls. They both present some good GPP upside, too, because I don't expect either one of them to be too insanely high owned. I mean, it's a very small slate, like we said, so everybody's going to have a little bit of ownership, but those two guys should be on like the bottom half of what we're looking at. So I'm with you. I mean, if you wanted to bring in the other guy, I guess on the Rockets, it would be Capella. Just because his rebounding. Again, we're not expecting everybody to play upwards of 20 minutes, or 28 minutes. Like I would love James Harden to play 28 minutes, and he did. He actually has like a path to it very well, it being like their first actual preseason game. But even in 22 minutes, we could see Capella outscore just about anybody else on the court but James Harden.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll throw that caveat, and I guess I'll slide over to the Clippers a little bit. And one guy, I mean, obviously we're going to be waiting to see on Kawhi Leonard, but he hasn't been really participating in contact drills, so I'm not expecting him to play. He has a questionable tag next to him, so I'm going to be all over Mo Harkless. He's a guy, I mean, his price, like we said, it doesn't even matter, but he's so far down on this list that I don't anticipate a lot of people even remember him or even see him. I mean, we're talking all the way at the bottom. Just completely sandwiched in between guys like Jerome Robinson and and Chris Clemens. So there's no real reason for people to be all the way down there at 2,200, and he's a guy that I think regardless he's going to be a part of this team. He should get a decent run today or tomorrow, and maybe about 26 minutes, I'm thinking, 25 minutes.
Yeah, very possibly. There's no question he could be one of the guys that gets a decent run. I think that's a great guy to bring up, and then, you've got the rotation of a couple of big guys there too with Zubac and Harrell. I would assume they'll both, get some rotational minutes and are both playable, and, their prices are reasonable also. The rookie Landry, I think, will be owned by quite a few people, and probably Patrick Beverly will get some minutes. Again, we're not looking for those blowout scores. We're looking at guys are going to get enough minutes, and we want to you want to make sure that you're a little contrarian, because if you just if you don't look for any decent pivots to a guy like Shamet or Zubac or Harkless, then you're going to have 90% owned Harden and Capella like everybody else. So, balance the fact that you can spend that money on the big guys like Harden and Capellas and mix them in with who you feel is going to get those extra minutes. Like, Mike's high on Harkless. I sort of, like the pivot a little bit more with House and Green. I think Gordon will get some ownership as well, but the mixture of the super highly owned guys with a couple of pivots to give you a contrarian feel is going to be a good way to go in the GPPs and in game. But in those where you're head to head, you got to plug in your main Hardens and Capellas, and then just fill in with the guys you think are going to step up and play.
Ownership is a big factor that we're going to have to take into account. I'm glad you brought that up because, for me, I actually think Zubac would be a little lower owned than a guy like Harrell. So I think Zubac would be the actual pivot for me. I would expect him to, when you think about it, yes, Harrell is obviously the better, producer, and we'd expect him to play more minutes. And a lot of that comes into account is why he's so much more expensive than him. But if they're both playing 22 minutes, let's just say, for instance, there's not going to be a huge difference in their actual scores, I don't think, at the end of the day. So we're going to be looking for the lower-owned guy. And, I mean, that it's that cut and dry. You just got to go with your gut, play the studs that you're going to expect to perform, and take your shots with one or two spots. And, really separate yourself from the group. And it's like Coach said, as long as you're not putting up a complete goose egg, there's a decent chance, especially early on in this kind of preseason environment, where you can still cash out with a low score.
Yeah, and it's a completely different philosophy. I mean, you've got to gear your head to different thinking. For me especially, because I'm like a one or two lineup guy. Cash game in the higher level head to heads. In this scenario, it's different. That's not the real world of preseason basketball. It's similar to if you played any of the FIBA stuff or the Summer League stuff. You're just trying to get a group of guys in there that are going to get minutes and not take zeros. And, if your whole team averages like 20, 25 minutes, you've done a great job of getting the best rotation forward. And so that would be my best advice. And, I would say, tread a little more lightly with this one game. And then there's a 2-game slate on Saturday, because it's a little bit tougher with the smallest slates in these type scenarios. Now, when things really get rocking and rolling is Sunday, and then all through next week, you've got basically 4, 5, 6-game slates all along. And then you can really, we can dig in and start building some good teams. But that's really, everything that I've got on that game. Again, I want to recommend, the process here very simply. We're going to be putting this out, in this one's tomorrow, so that you'll have tomorrow to listen to it. But at 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, which would be considered Friday, it's going to be played. So you want to watch everything tomorrow. Go to the hoop-ball.com, look at all of those blurbs to see what's playing. If there's any player discussion of anybody that may be out, follow us on Twitter, and we'll throw some stuff up there on the board. I did see one thing that I wanted to mention, that Zubac had something that was a little sore and he may be a little limited. That's the kind of thing that we need to dig in on, because that can be a huge thing if you're pivoting to somebody. So I'll be tweeting about that coming up later today, so that you guys can have that ready for the game.
Good call, Coach. And and if you're ever wondering where the other info is, just make sure you're following all the Hoopball blurbs on Twitter. Up to the minute, good analysis behind every single one, and generally you'll get an idea of who's going to capitalize off of somebody else sitting. So another thing to keep an eye on, if you're following me and Coach, you'll get a lot of that information. But if there's another avenue for it as well.
Absolutely, and remember that the Hoopball NBA DFS Today podcast can be heard on anywhere podcasts can be found: iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. Please take your time to subscribe, rate, review. We want to bring you the best free content anywhere on the planet for NBA DFS. We'll be with you 7 days a week, and we are excited. So anything in closing, Mr. Apatria?
No, let's do this. Let's hope that we're talking about how much money we win next time.
We are going to try to get ourselves some bankroll going. So awesome, man. We thank you for joining us for the initial 1-game slate of the first show of many, 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 many more to come with Hoopball NBA DFS Today. So for Mike Apatria, I'm Coach. We will catch you tomorrow, and we are going to make some big money and crush this season in the NBA DFS world. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.